No, you can't make me go in
There's
there.
nothing wrong with our house!
Peter, get off me! Peter!
Get me out! Get me out!
Stop it! Stop it!
So we are talking about the movie Unholy, which is a 2015 very low budget British ghost story that's being released in 2017 by High Flyers Entertainment. Now this one is actually based off an apparent true story. I suspect, although I don't know for sure, that it's actually based on the Enfield haunting. Now, if that one sounds familiar, it's because that same story was told in the movie The Conjuring 2. Now, they have changed some bits in them, so I'm not 100% sure that it's the same story. For example, there's not really the child element in it in this one. But nonetheless, it does seem very reminiscent of that. So I suspect that's what it is based on. The story here essentially focuses on a couple. They've bought their house for a song, for cheap, move into it, and at 11 o'clock every night, there seems to be some kind of disturbance that gets gradually worse. The wife, first of all, is the first to experience it, but then we see the husband eventually gets attacked, and then they're kind of trying to get help from the media, along with a professional kind of medium, and things get progressively worse into the violent finale. So, what do I think about Unholy? I've got to say the attention to detail here was somewhat lacking. Even if you take the first 15 minutes of the film and you listen to the dialogue, there's some things that they literally contradict themselves in. For example, the estate agent, when they're looking around the house, and this is all in the one scene, says this is the last house that they were looking at. And then she makes a comment about, almost it seems like it was what sort of thing you're looking for, or something like that. And it's like, you've just said this is the last house, so surely you've had this conversation, before. And then she says the price, it's £8,000. This is based in the 70s, so that's why it's so cheap. And the husband comments on, wow, that's really cheap. And the next scene, he says, this is a bit out of our price range. And I thought, hang on a second, you've just said you thought this house was cheap, and why would you bother looking at it if it wasn't kind of within your price range to begin with, and why mention it? Stuff like that. So just the attention to detail here in regards to dialogue bothered me a bit, because it just seems like it's kind of been rushed through a little bit. And the production values here are quite cheap, to be honest. It is set in the 70s, and for the most part, I think it succeeds in kind of like making you think that. But there's certain things like people's haircuts, maybe some supporting characters and things like that, and just little touches maybe you think that doesn't really seem quite of the time. And there's some conveniences, like the guy's best friend happens to be dating a spirit medium, stuff like that. So there's just little conveniences. The actual effects themselves are on the cheaper side, but I kind of won't hold it against it really, because I thought they did a pretty good job with the considerable low budget they have got here. And I actually think, despite the fact that it does look cheap, it actually looks effective in some scenes. I kind of like the main female character here as well, the wife. I thought her kind of performance was quite good in places. I mean, the acting overall was a little bit choppy in general, so particularly again with some of the smaller characters, and the husband is horribly written, and he seems like a complete asshole and completely unsympathetic, and actually almost to the point where I would say he comes across as abusive, but you're kind of meant to root for him as a protagonist. So I thought he was very, very badly written. But the wife, I feel, is a lot more of a kind of sympathetic character, and her portrayal is quite good. You do get the sense that she's kind of just can't deal with it, and no one will kind of listen to her, so that she has that kind of frustration. And I thought she sold that quite well. And the ghostly reveals are a pretty good interval, so it does kind of have this sense of ramping kind of tension and kind of fear as it kind of grows towards the finale. The finale itself I have a little bit of a mixed feeling with, to be honest, because it's kind of They've tried to make it look like a big explosive finale, but I don't want to say too much, but it clearly looks like models. So that's all I'll really say on it. So yeah, the finale, if you're not kind of, or have the eye of looking at too close, you might not notice, but nonetheless, overall though, I thought it was a fair ghost story. It does have some kind of creepy moments. A lot of it is kind of like door slamming and noises and stuff like that. And one thing that amused me massively, the first time we hear this ghost, it sounds like it's making a cup of tea. And I thought, wow, that is the most British ghost I've ever heard. So that was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It definitely has shades of The Conjuring, particularly The Conjuring Part 2, because I really do suspect it's based off the same story. Overall, though, it does have a certain kind of low-budget spooky charm. I kind of dug it. I thought the pacing was quite good, and I kind of, being a bit of a B-movie fan myself, I don't mind so much the kind of cheaper side of things if the filmmakers can kind of find ways around things and not use tricks to kind of hide the budget. And I think in some parts, at least, they do succeed. Some parts they don't, I will say, but in some parts they do. So overall, if you like those kind of Conjuring type films, but you want to see a real low budget version of it, then maybe you want to check out Unholy. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.